next step in our accounting cycle, we're going to look at how to put together our financial statements. The easiest way, I think, to put together financial statements is typically from our adjusted trial balance, which we made in our last video. And if we got it correctly, we should have all the account balances we need to quickly create our financial statements. Our very first financial statement is always our income statement. And the goal of income statement is to show our profit. What's the profit for our company, either over a month or sometimes a year? Our income statement always starts with revenues at the top. Then we list all of our expenses. And finally, we get the difference in the two, which is net income, if it's a positive number, or sometimes we call it net loss if it's a negative number. So I'm going to bring all the balances over from my adjusted trial balance and fill out my income statement first. All right, I've brought over all of my expenses and my revenues. And typically, I total up all my revenue, even if I only have one off to the side, just to show total overall revenue. And then I also typically total up all my expenses. Again, it's off to the side to show all of my total expenses. And then finally, I take my revenues minus my expenses, and I'll get my overall net income, in this case, $6,697. Now this is going to feed down into my next statement, my statement of retained earnings. And this shows my change in retained earnings over the year. What's happened? Okay, this is again the money I keep within my company. Well, if I'm a brand new company, my retained earnings is always starting at 0. If you're a company that's been existing before, be sure to look back at any trial balance that's older and pull the number off of that. Next, I'm going to add my company's net income for the year, in this case, $6,097, which is from above. Okay, I have to have finished my income statement to have that number ready. Traditionally, next, there's a total of my beginning retained earnings plus net income, just to double check that this is a positive number. If it's not a positive number, if I've had loss after loss after loss, I cannot pay a dividend. And so that's why this little extra total is in here. Now I'm going to subtract my dividends. In this case, I had $1,500 in dividends we paid out to our owners. And then finally, I'm going to get my ending retained earnings balance at the bottom. Move this up just a teeny bit. And it's the difference in the two. And so I've got leftover retained earnings of $5,197 to keep and withhold in my company. Now this is going to move to my balance sheet. Okay, so at this point in time, all of my revenue has been captured, all of my dividends have been captured, and this final retained earnings balance will move down into my balance sheet. And that's my next financial statement. All right, so first of all, I am going to put in my retained earnings for my last statement, $5,197, and that's how our statements are connected. Next up, I'm going to go through and look for all of my assets. These are, again, my resources that are going to be used in the future. Then I'm going to look for my liabilities, and finally, equity. I'm going to total up my assets in the middle, and I'm going to total up my liabilities and equity at the bottom, and these should match. If I've done everything correctly, these have to match, showing my accounting equation holds true. So let's bring these numbers over from the prior trial balance. All right, I've brought over all of my assets from my trial balance, and I'm going to total up all of my current assets first, $36,117. These are all my current assets I will typically use in the next year. Next, I have my plant asset heading, where I've got my computer equipment, and my accumulated depreciation shows up as a negative number. And I'm going to total these up to the side. $19,500 is my overall plant asset value. And then next, I'm going to add my current and plant assets together for a total of $55,617. And again, hopefully, if I do my next section right, I should get that same total at the bottom. Go through next and look for all of our liabilities. In this case, we only have one with a total of $420. And then I've got my common stock, my retained earnings that I'm adding to those liability totals. And so if I add those three numbers together, I should get the matching number, which I do, $55,617. And now my financial statements are complete.